welcome to another episode of Confessions of a Career Coach with Elena Agar. Today's confession is that, like many of you out there, I have worked at jobs that I completely despised. I didn't care for it. I hated being in the job, and I didn't like anything about working in particular jobs. I found myself crying in bathrooms at one point at one of the jobs I worked at. Not to name names, but there was a company I was working with at the time. And I was so desperate to get out of it. I remember I was applying to jobs all the time. And every time I'd get a rejection, I would just go to the bathroom and I would cry because I was just wanting to get out of it so badly. I didn't want to be there. Oh my goodness. So just miserable experiences. And when there's jobs that are either you have somebody breathing down your neck, like micromanaging you, or you're sitting in a cubicle, like there's no privacy, there's no space, you can't concentrate, and so on. So just not great experiences. But all that is to say, honestly, it probably made me even more grateful to be in a position now where I can work remotely, I can do business remotely, I can do all these different things at a remote environment, or only go into face-to-face meetings when I need to, and so on. So grateful for that. I don't think young generations, particularly if you have graduated during a pandemic and you are now, your first job is working remotely and so on, I don't think you appreciate it as much as we do, those who had to actually go and spend time in the office. But with that being said, I am a huge fan of young talent, in particular fresh graduates, particularly if you've never been in an office, if you never had a chance to build relationships and social skills and just network and just to see how the politics of the office works. You might not recognize it at that point, but you will start to sense how relationships happen in an office environment. If you have an opportunity to work in the office hybrid, I'm not saying 5 days a week by all means, but just even once a week, if you have a chance to go and interact with anybody that you can in an office environment, highly recommend to do that. And I know this is not, popular among a lot of, Gen Zs coming out of universities, but guys, honestly, having that interaction face to face has so many benefits for you. Not only do you get to see how those politics and just office environments and office relationships work, it's also an opportunity for you to get that potential mentorship, to meet senior leadership, to mingle with others, to learn from others. You just cannot replace it with online. Listen, if you're like a super networker and you're just so good in this digital world, maybe you can get away with it. But with that being said, that means you need to really be intentional about how you reach out to people in your remote environment and actually spend time chatting with them on Teams or on Zoom. But also remember, as a junior team member, you're not always not every senior leader at a company, especially on the large companies, is gonna give you that time. But if you run into them at a coffee machine or a water cooler or at a company happy hour or something, right, or some kind of in-person activity, you're more likely to be able to have a chance to meet that senior leader, right? In larger organizations, you're not just going to message a senior leader and be like, hey, do you want to Teams and like have a virtual coffee? Maybe not. Probably not in most cases, right? So for better or for worse, it's just how it works. They're busy. They won't always give you the time as a junior team members, right? Your manager may not always be a great manager who's able to manage you and mentor you and develop you and help you grow your career and act as a sponsor in a remote environment. So don't just expect that the manager knows it all, because a lot of times they don't. All right, they're just human people, humans out there who never really got training on how to be a proper people manager, let alone to do this remotely. What I'm trying to get at is that if you have a chance to do this in person, I highly recommend. And even if you don't, but maybe you have coworkers that live in the same area, organize a happy hour, organize a hike, a physical activity, whatever floats your boat, organize a game night, whatever it is, organize something where you meet people face to face. And furthermore, just, this is something I've been doing a lot of research on. Young people in particular are becoming more disconnected, more lonely, very little opportunity to meet a potential partner and so on. You are cheating yourself by not being in person, because ultimately it's going to impact also your health and mental health in many cases. So take time, think about ways you can engage with your coworkers, with others. If you're running your own business at that stage, going into a co-working space, anything to get in front of people and to mingle. And again, just build relationships, understand how, people operate. You can get that online. You miss out on a lot of that. So And all of that is to say that connection we very much crave. I know it's not always an option for many people, many companies, but create those opportunities for yourself. And okay, let's say you just can't. You're the only person in your state. There's nobody around you from your work. Attend networking events for the sake of just seeing other people, especially if you're young. You got to go through it. You got to go through that point where you're just understanding how business happens, how people interact, how people act at networking events. It is the most interesting experiment to observe ever. I go for them just for fun, although I don't need to at this stage. I prefer more I don't need to. I prefer more intimate interactions, more like small dinners, coffees, one-on-ones, and so on. But it's fascinating to observe people at networking events. You learn so much about humans. You learn so much about yourself. You get yourself out of your comfort zone. You get to meet other people. You never know what those connections might bring. And you are learning how to deal with people from all sorts of backgrounds, all sorts of business understandings. And there's always something you can learn. So that was a long rant to just say, please don't just get stuck behind your computer. I promise you it's not going to end good for you long term. It is always better to meet other people, especially as a young talent coming into the workforce. Take this from a recruiter, from a people manager, from somebody who does this for a living. I promise you there's so much benefit to your career in this.